Ladies and gentlemen, the premier percussionist of South Jersey, the Mystic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm the Mystic, percussionist of the East Coast here in America. I want to hope all of you are okay through these very turbulent and rough times that have fallen upon our land. And I pray that things get better for all of us. I've dedicated the last 30 years to studying world beat percussion. I studied under many teachers. I've collected many instruments. And today I'd like to talk about some different aspects of percussion, rhythmic timing, signatures, how certain rhythms I identify with different identities and cultural idioms. And I'd like to thank my mother, my father, my wife Roxanne, my children, my brothers and sisters, all my friends, and all of you who have taken the time out of your busy day to come along on my journey here with me. I hope I can show you some new things and teach you some new sort of perspectives on what rhythm is and what music is. So let's get started. Rhythmically, so that I can understand. So when I was talking to my daughter, she said she was caring for educating a child of an Ashanti woman mother, and I remember I studied an Ashanti rhythm many years ago, and I went back to it. Now, since I had studied that rhythm, I've studied many other rhythms. And like building a house, there's one brick at a time. So you base a lot of what you understand on what you know. That's with any knowledge or any art form. So what it made me to realize is there are deep-rooted songs, rhythms, patterns, cultural identities, nationalistic songs that are so deep-rooted in us from when we were children that we almost forget that they're there. And they become a part of what we are, but they're so deep inside of us that we forget that they're there. And they make up who we are, and what we perceive as music, rhythm. So I started to think back on my original studies. And I remember my first percussion teacher told me that in order to learn other rhythms, and the word pulse was very important to him, you have to separate yourself from your own musical identity. This has taken me a very, very long time to do this, but I feel after 3 decades of playing, it's finally starting to settle inside of me that the musical identities of very far away cultures are actually starting to become part of how my rhythm cycle thinks. As a child, our mother sings us lullabies. We play certain games, hopscotch. I'm referring to growing up in America in the West here. Reciting patty cake. Our alphabet, our language is also a big part of our rhythmic cycle, how we speak, how we phrase things, how words take on different meanings, and so forth. So a lot of Western music is set in 4/4 time. It's counted in 4 consecutive counts, 4 times, 16 even cycles. We lead back to the 1. This is what my dear friend Joe was talking about was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The 1 is a constant on the beat presence in Western music, Western pop music, Western cultural, classical music, and so forth. With the exception of the waltz and jazz, of course, incorporates a lot of other time signatures. And very often in the West, many people cannot understand the timing and where the 1 is, so they sort of pass away the music. So I was reading in one of my books that I've studied, many, many books on the music of Africa and the Caribbean and the Middle East and foreign places. And the one author was saying, he was living in Africa, and he was listening to the children. They were beating like paint cans outside of his hotel or wherever he was staying. And he heard them playing on the offbeat. So a lot of rhythms are, to us, seem like they're on the offbeat. So I'm about to show you my perception of what I think certain African music time feel is, and why it can confuse many Western listeners. We're going to do a count of 3. We're going to go to 12. This is a feel that is a very exotic kind of feel, and it's throughout the world. So the count would go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is the longest way we could count this off. And very often, the different numbers can make us lose the kind of feel, the rhythmic feel that we're looking for. So we'll break it down to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. solid hit here on the 6. This is uncommon in a lot of Western music, this 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once we get very strong with that, we can eventually go to just 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what becomes very interesting as we start thinking faster, we start getting this muscle memory of this clap, this time. We can throw an offbeat, we call it in the West. So the offbeat is when the hand is up. The downbeat is when the hand meets the other hand. So we would go 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. As it keeps developing and developing, we put pauses in between. This is where finding the 1 can become very challenging. So the way I was taught was rhythms are felt. They're counted, but they're not played. And this is the challenging part of playing a lot of this African, Middle Eastern, Indian music is you have to feel the time. And sometimes you play, and sometimes you feel. Sometimes you play, sometimes you feel. So I'm going to use the word feel in the place of. Hello, we're back. Just wanted to sort of correct something I just said. There are many forms of salsa, cha-cha-cha, that use 6. So when I use the term in the West, many African rhythms and 6/8 time signatures have made their way into Western music. So I just wanted to just reiterate that. Also, there are African rhythms in 4, but the general feel of them often sounds more like a 6, and they go back and forth between 4 and 6. That's a common practice too. So, I'm going to play a Shanti rhythm. Goes like this. 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2. So I'll transfer it to the drums. It goes like this. So, keep repeating this pattern, sometimes for hours. Many of these ceremonies go on for all day long. Sometimes musicians will switch on and off. So, what we can do here is sort of change up the drums. We won't change the pattern, but I'll accent on different drums. I have it in the top band here. Pretty sure this is an Ashanti. When I originally bought it, the guy said it was a lead drum. But now that I've studied for a long time, I'm pretty sure this is an Ashanti. Tumpin. So I'll be throwing this in for spice once in a while. We'll take the same pattern. We're going to play on these 3 different, I have a Quinto, a Conga or Sogo, and and a tocadora, and then a top end, and another quinto. So pattern goes. So that's the basic phrase. Now we can take the phrase and take two parts of it and sort of elaborate on that. So we'll take the first part, 1, 2, and second part, 1, 2, and. So it goes like this. So I said before, we can drop out the first part and just make it feel, and just play the second part. 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and feel. 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and go back to the whole phrase. Drop out the first two, 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, feel, 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 feel. So as we can see, we can elaborate, we can bring in, we can drop things. We can also change to a higher pitched instrument. And 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1. You'll hear all over Africa, Middle East, India, the patterns very often by women is clapped out. So we have a feel like this. Now while the clapping is going on, there's consistently singing, repeating, bringing in and out, depending on the ceremony, festival, so forth, that keeps reinforcing the emotion of the moment, be it a wedding, funeral, birth of a child. So keep in mind, this reflects the human condition from which it is being played, and that's going to affect the sound and the feel of the pattern itself. There's no pattern set in stone. There is only the moving of the sun and the moon, the growth of the crops, the waves and the earth, and being in tune with natural forces. That's what makes these rhythms so special. Thank you. Hello, we're back. So we've discussed a few of the deep-buried archetypical feelings and relationships to rhythms from our childhood. We looked at an Ashanti rhythm and some of the different phrasings I used. So now I decided to take a look at some of the drums of the Caribbean and Africa, and what I've learned over the years of collecting and getting a better understanding. Common theme is duality. Forces of darkness, forces of light, forces of female, forces of male, forces of water, forces of fire. It's very consistent in the patterns of rhythm and in the making of the drums. One of the common themes I've seen in African and Caribbean music here is the snake. Snake is a constant reminder of universal forces that are constantly at work on the human condition. The snake can take many forms. Here are two snakes intertwined. I don't know if you can see that. This is eternity, forever, goes on forever, time immemorial. As we can see here, there are snakes on this Afro-Cuban bata here. There are female forces, there are male forces, constantly at work, against each other, with each other. This is the earth, this is the sun, this is the moon. You see here, these are the hands, these are the heavens. Here is the snake, a constant reminder of duality and forces of the universe. Here is the transmitter, the drum itself. One of the ways that human beings reach the heavens, if you see the heavens here, is through the dance. This woman is entranced and or possessed. This is the way heavens and the earth meet, is through the dance. There is also often a tribute to nature. Palm trees give us coconuts, palm oil to cook with, and the importance of the home. If you can see here, there is a hut. And a family, and the importance of the home. The taller the drum, obviously, the deeper the sound. So this is from Haiti, this particular instrument. We have Dundun from Nigeria. So here we have the dualities, the two heads. Now, this is another African drum here. It very often dreams and the abstract are forces. So they actually put sort of a dreamlike face on this drum. I see the smaller drum has a higher, snappier feel. So not only do drums make wonderful sounds, but they also can be beautiful works of art. Even in this more primitive looking, unelaborate sabar from Senegal, we can still see duality. The straight line here can represent the male, and the sort of pyramid triangular shape here can resemble the female. So when we look at the sabar from Senegal, and then we look at the mamin from Haiti, we can see the shapes and the technique of how the head is applied, and the general overview of the transplant from Africa to the Caribbean here. Once again, familiar themes. This is the hut. Here is the palm trees that give us wood, coconuts. And here is a drummer on his way to playing a ceremony, possibly, or maybe just for fun. But as we see, the drum and the man and the rhythm and the feel of the motion and the mountains here and the waves. Nature is never far from the spirit. We have a P2. Here's a shaker from Africa. I've had this a long time. I really like that sound. This is a P2. And as we can see here, the servants of the Iwa are bringing breadfruit, and they are dancing to the elaborate rhythms of Haiti, and the ancestry is in Africa. I have some congas here from the Dominican Republic. Here is Urzuli, spirit of all female empty in the ocean. Here is Saint Michael, that which is the male and the alpha male. And in between, we have some folks playing different instruments. The Bamboo Yambu Band, my friend JR was from Trinidad. These are bamboo tubes that people blow into. They're similar to trumpets. Here we see carrying the cross, different celebrations, paying homage. On this tumbadora, once again we see the theme.
Say goodbye.